Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Sethum and welcome back to another video guide. In this video, folks, I'm going to show you two auto farmers that you can make use of here in Valheim. And the first one will be for the Surtlings that spawn here in the swamp. Now, of course, Surtlings are made of fire, so the moment they make contact with water, they will die. And they will, of course, drop their loot, which is, of course, the Surtling cores and the coal. So, first things first, we're just going to dig around this spawner right here, and in the next section of the video I'm going to show you how to farm the Greydwarf spawners. Of course, things have changed with the latest update, in which of course campfires do take damage when they deal damage. So there is a way of doing it, and of course that is a method that may potentially be patched out in the future. However, it is still a method that can run even if it's patched out, because you can use it as a manual farmer with regards to the Greydwarfs. So first things first, I'm going to start with the Surtling core farm, and of course I'm going to use my pick to dig down deepwards into the water until I can barely walk, and this will of course help with the build around the farm. So, yes, as I said, we want to go fairly deep. Now, one thing we want to keep in mind is that the swamp is more or less level with the sea level. So, we want to go to the depth where we struggle to walk like this, but not deeper than that, because we don't want to be swimming in here. We will be placing the stone foundations, and so they are pretty chunky. And so we have to account for the fact that we still want water underneath our feet once we place the stone foundations down. So if we build it or dig down deep enough though, so that we are already struggling to walk but not yet swimming in it, that should be enough clearance for the foundations to be in the ground but still have water at the feet. So right now I'm just making sure that I'm struggling to walk in the area. I mean, oh, there we go. Yeah, see, that's exactly what we're aiming to do right there. So we're basically just using the natural environment against the NPCs, and so this will become a auto spawner. Now, of course, you can build a fob type of thing, or a collection house, or whatever you want to call it. Something where you can store all this information. Now, of course, the fire does do damage, not a lot to worry us too much. And of course, you also have to bear in mind the hostile NPCs. Now, one thing I do recommend here is when you do build up your base, and I'll show you later in this video, or your small collection point where you can store all the stuff, I suggest that you build within a distance of this, simply because there might be some items, some base items that may interfere either now or later as things get added into the game with the spawn of the Surtlings. So we don't really want them to stop spawning, basically. That's the aim. So this is a bit high up here, so we'll go further down like so. That'll do. Oh, there's another one that just died out. We are slightly swimming there, but that's fine. Right, so I'm going to try and kind of place this so that the corner is right where the fire comes out the ground. We do have sufficient depth here. It doesn't matter if the ground underneath is not flat. We're not really that bothered about that. Like so. And we will place another one on this end. So I'm going to try and build a fairly decent size. This is going to be kind of like a cage if you want. I mean, they won't get out of here, the Surtling cores, because the Surtlings, because of course they'll die before they even leave anything. But the other thing is, we don't want any other NPCs coming into here. So, you know, we want the Surtlings to spawn in, take damage from the water, die out, and then just drop the resources that they drop. And so that's kind of what we're aiming. So we're going to enclose it in some way. Of course, we also want easy access into the... Ooh, that's not what I meant to do. We also want easy access into the farm cage, if you want to call it, farm enclosure. Right there, I need to dig a bit, so that's fine. Can't place that one down because it's a bit too high. I think this will do. Oh, there we go. Sometimes I do place a bit wonky, so we'll just correct that when that happens. So right there, and we're just going to put some walls around it. We're only going to go with one tall. We don't need to do anything fancy, and that should pretty much end the build. So this is what it looks like. It's taken a bit of time. I think I've been here for about maybe 15 to 20 minutes, and we already have some resources. I also built up a little thing up there in the tree, and this is what I suggest you do. I would strongly advise building further away from where your farm is, just so that the spawn of the creatures is not affected. So here we have it. I'm going to show you what I got from the time it took me to just build this little enclosure. I've placed some chests and kind of stored everything here. So these are all these Surtling cores that I have gathered, and this is all of the coal that I've gathered, I'd say within maybe 20 to 25 minutes. Alright, so that is pretty much it. As I said, it doesn't take that long to build this. Now, of course, this cuts out the need to farm wood, which you then put into the kiln and burn to turn into coal. You get a decent amount of coal from this, and of course you also get a very good amount of certain cores from the deaths of the Surtlings that spawn into the area. So definitely a good self auto farm that kind of generates a lot of resources, and I think it is self-sustainable just because of the type of resources that it generates. So definitely worth taking advantage of this when you are in this area. The next one I'm going to show you is how to take advantage of the Greydwarf nest or spawner. This one's a bit more complicated, and of course the devs have tried to patch it up. I have made a single video just for this, so I'm going to just go briefly over what you need to do. So this is what it looks like. Of course, one thing that you need to know is that the Greydwarf spawner will spawn a maximum of 3 Greydwarfs around it. Of course, that means the Greydwarfs need to be around it. If they go too far, it will read as if the dwarfs have died or not close enough. So basically they have to be within close proximity of the spawner. So first things first, of course, you'll set down a workbench, and then we surround it with campfires. Now, yes, campfires do take damage when they deal damage, but the idea of the campfires is, of course, to pretty much kind of enclose the area and lock in all the Greydwarfs. So that is the whole point of this. Now, of course, you can try and dig a pit and have 3 Greydwarfs from the spawner in that pit, and that'll stop the spawner itself from spawning any more NPCs. Now, of course, you can test it just before you do anything else. If they can get through, that means you have a hole, so just cover up that hole, and then that should keep the Greydwarfs in the area. So as you can see, because of the fire, they don't really aggro that quickly onto me. Once you have surrounded the area, make sure you take out all the branches from the outside. That does not really affect the spawner and with regards to taking any damage. Next thing up, we will need loads of stone. We will build up with the hoe. We want to go about 5-6 tall. You can go taller if you want. The idea is we're going to cover the spawner in the ground that we raise, and of course we will sometimes raise some Greydwarfs with it, but hey ho, it is what it is. They are a bit busy with the fire, so that is something that works to our advantage. The idea here is we're going to build a giant cube, so to speak, out of the dirt. Of course, you can see right here I'm using the crosshair to just go slightly under the lip of the ground that I've already raised, so that way I just use 4 stone to bring up another section to the exact same height. So that is quite economical in terms of resources. Alright, once you are happy with the size, it's time to level it up with the hoe. So we're going to do that on the top. There's a good reason for this, and you will see later in the section. Now, one thing to make important note of is that you don't want any of the branches from the spawner itself to be sticking out, just on the principle that it may potentially continue to spawn spawn Greydwarfs. We want to stop the spawn for the time being. Now what we've done here is basically we've enclosed it. We've kind of stopped the spawner from spawning any more NPCs. We're now going to get our pick and we are going to dig downwards and inwards. I recommend that you choose somewhere where the center of your build, your mountain that you just created, your mole, your hill, whatever you want to call it. So you want to kind of center it if you want to. It does help, and you'll see later why. And downwards because, of course, the NPCs don't know how to get back out. So basically, effectively, what we are doing here is we are now opening up a spawn location for the spawner to spawn its creatures, and it can only spawn its creatures in that specific location. And so with that, basically, we are now effectively forcing the spawner to spawn in this pit right here that we are creating, as you can see. Now you can go a bit further inwards if you want to do so. I would strongly advise to watch out. You make sure you don't want to hit the spawner itself. I mean, it can take a couple of pick hits, but we don't really want to destroy the spawner. Now that it's spawning things again, we need to stop it from spawning. So of course we need to enclose the top. Of course, it's up to you how you place these tiles. So we're doing the wooden floor pieces. I kind of like to place them something like this, and then they're not in the way, they're not affecting the spawner itself initially. Now you can hear the Greydwarfs being killed, but I'll show you how to do that later in the section. I'll show you exactly why you want to do this as well with the roofs or with the flooring, which we're going to use as roof. So we're going to snap it onto this. In the moment we close off this gap, the spawner itself will stop spawning because it wants to have a or have sight of the sky. So that is a condition for it to spawn. The moment we've done this, it will not spawn anymore. So that gives us the time to start adding in the fire that will of course be killing the dwarves. Now as you can see, we've got some dwarves down here, so I'll just clear these guys out. And of course, as I said, or if I haven't said, I'll say it now, it will only ever spawn 3 dwarfs at one time, so, or at any one time, no more than that. Go and pick up these resources. Next thing we will need is an inclined beam, and we're gonna have to get ourselves out of here before we do that. So we're gonna go back into the workbench, and we want the 45-degree inclined beam. We want it just above the ground onto the wall, and onto that we are going to aim to attach a brazier. So let's find the brazier. Now very important here with the brazier is you want the brazier to be attached to the beam, but also to have contact with the ground. Now sometimes it may be a bit fiddly, and notice as I'm doing this, I am not getting any Greydwarfs to spawn in, so we've pretty much paused the spawn. Now I'm trying to fiddle about with this, but it's not really snapping on to where I want it to, so a bit problematic here. So that's fine, we just go back down here, we get our pick out, and we just dig this way towards the outer edge once or twice. I think once is enough. That's good clearance right there. And now we should be able to attach the brazier. Now this can be a bit fiddly because we want, remember, the brazier to attach to the 45-degree beam, but also to have or to be in contact with the ground. So it might need a bit of patience here. We'll give this a go and see if it works. Now if it works right, when we remove the beam, the brazier should remain there, and the brazier will do damage but not take damage because it's not a campfire. So okay, so the brazier is there, but it has gone out because it's too low to the ground. Eventually, with a bit of fiddling about and tweaking, we will get to the point where you will have the 45-degree beam and the brazier touching the ground, and when you remove the 45-degree beam, the brazier will stay there and lit. When you've done that, basically it's just a case of removing the floor pieces above it, and that should start the spawner off back again. So right now I've removed the floor pieces above. The Greydwarfs are spawning into the pit, taking damage from the brazier. The brazier does not take damage itself because it's not a campfire or anything like that. And so, of course, this is a method that currently seems to work. I think this may potentially also get patched later on. However, this is still a method that you can use to manually farm the Grey Dwarfs and still get your resources if you want to do that. So definitely not something to overlook, because it still has its purpose and uses. Now, as it currently stands, it isn't all that perfect, as the Grey Dwarf Bruise may potentially be able to damage the brazier, which means you'll have to pause the spawner and replace the brazier. It's not as good as the previous one, but it is still an auto farmer, and as I said, you can turn it into a manual farm, so definitely worth looking at. With that being said and done, that is pretty much it for this video, folks. I do hope that you have enjoyed it and found it useful and informative. If you have, please do not forget to support me on the channel by hitting that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new and haven't already for more similar content from myself, and if you have just subscribed, why not check out some of my other videos and guides here on this channel. Who knows, you might just enjoy them. And don't forget to hit that bell icon so that you get notified when I upload new videos and content to the channel. Also, for those interested, you can always find me on the Sethtopia Discord. Links to this, of course, you can find down below in the video's description. And until next time, stay safe, folks.